Good evening, everybody. This is Michael and Julie again for Solas Inspirational Chats. And tonight we're absolutely delighted to have Tracy and Tim on from the Center for Universal Consciousness and Energy Rejuvenation. We've had a couple of conversations we know Tim a while, and we've had conversations with Tracy also. And we've been using some of the products that have been recommended by both of them with great success. I've actually lost some weight and have toned up, which my wife is delighted with. And Julie's doing the same. But anyway, Tracy and Tim, welcome to our chat this evening.
Thank you both for this amazing opportunity. It's a privilege and an honor to speak with you both. I'll introduce myself and then I'll let Tim jump in and introduce himself. My name is Tracy Menchington. I'm a telepathic writer of ancient esoteric knowledge, a philosopher, researcher, and a practicing alchemist. I'm here with my associate and my spiritual brother, Tim. I'm based in the western part of Canada along the ancient electromagnetic energy grid of 50 degrees north, which is on the land of my ancestors. And Tim, as you know, is located on the beautiful Emerald Island of Ireland. We both specialize in energy restoration through purification and regeneration of the electric body and the ascension of consciousness.
Yeah, excellent. And I suppose I'd like to add that I'm just a dowser, right? I've always been a dowser. I've got it from my father, and like the rest of it, for the people that would know me here, it has been a passion of mine for most of my life, indeed. And most of my interest would be in ancient monuments and ancient history and anything to do with the past that we don't know about. That was always very fascinating subject for me as a child, and indeed I'm still a child, as most people would know. Anyway, but the thing about Tracy, she has this information, this knowledge that is very unique. When I say unique, it's not unique. It's been out there. It's been out there forever, really. But like most of the stuff you're going to hear tonight, we're just barely touching on it, very, very lightly. I would think, maybe, I don't know, maybe Tracy might agree with me that what you're going to hear tonight is probably less than 5% of the whole thing. So it's something that you have to have an interest in it, and you have to seek this information, and it's all available free, but it does take your time, and you have to have a very open mind. Okay, that's it, Tracy. You want to continue on?
Sure. I think it's important just to kind of talk a little bit about my spiritual journey, which involves my ancestors. So my spiritual journey began in 2012 when, through a series of personal hardships, I essentially came to the end of myself. Some people would call that the dark night of the soul. And it was the surrender of my ego, where I cried out to God in my desperation. And during that time, I started to receive what I referred to like a tap that was being turned on, a steady flow of wisdom, which I later became aware was telepathic communication. So these inward calling sessions were very frequent in the beginning, where I was given the wisdom to write down, and then a subsequent Bible scripture followed. So I was not brought up in a religious environment, and therefore I wasn't familiar with the scriptures. But I would discover, however, that what was given to me telepathically was what was in the specified scripture verse. Only there was a deeper meaning or esoteric truth rather than the literal meaning. So these telepathic sessions continued over the years, along with journaling, which came quite often early in the morning, around 3 a.m. So I later learned also that this is when the veil is the thinnest. So there's less ionization from the sun in the atmosphere at night and early morning, which produces better reception because thoughts travel along electromagnetic waves, as does light and sound. So in 2014, I was caught up in a weekend-long continuous telepathic download of information regarding my future, my calling, and my mission. So I was told I would write a book and open a healing center. And as you can imagine, this was not only perplexing and intimidating because I was not a writer up to this point, and I didn't know how I could endeavor such a daunting task of constructing a healing center. Excuse me. Well, not long after, I would be awakened with such thoughts as preface or index, and I would stumble out of bed looking for a pen and paper, ready to allow this steady flow of thoughts to form on the pages. So in 2017, I published a book titled My Thoughts Become Your Thoughts, Hearing the Voice of God. And here it is here, which is also on the website. And I published it through Balboa Press, which is a division of Hay House. And the title came to me from an earlier session, telepathic session, where I asked the spirit, okay, how are you communicating with me? And I, innocently asked, are you possessing me? Because I couldn't understand what was happening. And those were the words that formed on my page. My thoughts become your thoughts, which I later learned was telepathic communication. So from 2017 to present, the concepts of the healing center, excuse me, I have a bit of a hoarse throat this morning, began to unfold. So like the book, I would receive a lot of downloads or sometimes keywords where I began to research based on what was given to me. So I've been taken literally to places all around the world with the knowledge given to me to explore the ancient world, temples, ruins, stone circles, and more recent electrostatic generators, including George Van Tassel's Integratron, and also electromagnetic grid lines. I went on to become an amateur radio operator, where knowledge of the basic electrical engineering principles are required to attain the license. So this has filled in so many of the gaps of important information that is needed to construct an electrical generator for Ascension. So I've been continuously guided with revelations on how to rejuvenate the body through cellular hyperpolarization or recharging the cell, which then restores the DNA structure and ultimately then raises consciousness.
Yeah, and just to add on into that very briefly, like Tracy, in her research, she spent some time in Ireland. She was in Scotland and over in Italy, I believe. And so she see the thing is when you get this type of information, let's just call it information. Let's keep it really simple here. When you get this sort of information, you first need to validate it because we have to be careful who we're open to. And I, for one, I would have to prove it to myself first that there's something genuine here. First and foremost, the first base thing, find out if the car can travel, if it has tires. So I always keep things really, really simple. And like these downloads would have needed a verification, and Tracy would have gone into deep stages of research to see what was the extension of her information and her downloads. And I would be one of those people, since I've known Tracy 4 years now. So I would be one of those people that would say, but why, how, when? These are the questions that I need to know, and I need to verify that for myself, because I don't want to be, sort of led down a road that's not, healthy, shall we say, in the broadest sense of the meaning. So her research is very thorough, and So she has come to the conclusion that the cell structure needs the full attention, and yeah, and if we don't have that, we have no starting point. So I just want to throw in that. Okay, Tracy.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate that. And that's a good point because that's how I came to physically meet you. You know, we've talked a little bit online, and I knew because I'm originally from Newfoundland. And of course, if you're from Newfoundland or Nova Scotia and those places, all your ancestors come from either Ireland or Scotland or somewhere over that way, right? But I've never physically gone there. And that's how I met Tim, was to go over and explore where my ancestors came from, to know where this knowledge is coming from. And that's how I met Tim. So just to touch a little bit on my ancestors and where this knowledge is actually coming from, through my grandmother on my father's side, I've come from a long lineage of Knights Templars and also Micmac ancestors, who were the ancient Ionians in Greece. They were both medieval doctors who wrote medical manuscripts. I have a great book on the Beatons. Of course, they originally came from France. These are my ancestors. The English name now is Beaton, but it was the French pronunciation was Betoon. And of course, it changed when they went to Scotland and Ireland as well. The name did change, but it's now Beaton. So they constructed the medieval cathedrals or cathodes, is what they were, energy centers. And they were electrostatic generators that produce negative ions to recharge cells and raise consciousness. So this was the Holy Grail. And the Ark of the Covenant were the generators that would produce negative ions to raise consciousness to allow an individual a direct experience, or what is termed as gnosis, or the knowing of a personal telepathic divine revelation. So this is your personal connection with the cosmic ascended beings or gods. So heaven is a state of higher consciousness, which rises above all programmed thoughts of the left brain hemisphere. So you essentially die, or you sacrifice your lower self-attachments to the physical world, and then you awaken within a greater God consciousness. And as Jesus said, the kingdom of God is within you. So here's the bigger picture. Sorry, I'm just going to take a sip of water here. I don't know if Tim, if you had anything to interject there. Or...
Well, like for me, the whole thing is knowledge, you know, and how the thing comes. It starts off with information, and information, it can be a knowledge, but it often isn't knowledge. But then, if it becomes knowledge, then it's knowledge, and like wisdom, then is just knowledge that has been validated, or you know, it has been pulled apart to the point where there's a good chance it's real, you know, and that's where I feel, you know, most of the stuff like what we're talking about has been pulled apart, dragged in every sense to make sure it is genuine and it is true, because we're all looking for accuracy. I always talk about something like, you know, what's true and what's false. I love to think of the thing of accuracy as being a starting point, you know. So knowledge and wisdom, they're first cousins, but we need to get straight to the wisdom. So I feel that's where we are now. Okay.
Thanks, Tim. Yeah, that's also another very good point to bring up. When you start to make these telepathic connections, you'll receive the information, and then you do want to validate it, right? Like, it is profound when you get it, but you want to see, okay, is this really happening in the world, and how can I verify this? And that's literally what I was done. And I was guided, like I said, to a lot of places around the world with the knowledge that was given to me to be able to test this. So this is your inner knowing. This is how you know once you make the connection. So I think what the bigger picture is, and I'll touch briefly on that, which is essentially about the great year and the solar cycle. So astrology is the only true religion. It is the arc or the arch of the heavens. So all ancient civilizations knew of the Mazzaroth, that the Mazzaroth is described in the Bible, which is the 12 houses of the sun or the zodiac signs. And there are 12 astrological ages corresponding to the 12 zodiacal signs. So one cycle through the 12 astrological ages is called a great year. So one cycle of the sun through these ages. And that's compromising. There's different numbers when you look at it on the internet, but approximately 25,772 solar years. And at the end, there is a pole reversal, usually a cataclysmic event, and a reset. And we've all heard that word before, right? Of which another cycle begins. So the cosmic solar event of the Younger Dryas historically took place around, I think it's 12,000 years ago during the age of Leo. According to many researchers, such as Randall Carlson, Graham Hancock, as well as historical records of the Knights Templar, was the fall of Atlantis and the world's electromagnetic power grid, which were the portals of ascension. Almost all ancient technology was destroyed during that cataclysm. Even the ancient survivors were displaced. So I want to say that we are on borrowed time, and this is the reason why. The new age of Aquarius began in 2012, and we know that because that's when the Mayan calendar ended, which correlates to a reset of the 25,772-year solar cycle and this historical cataclysmic event timeline. So currently, we are now in a 10-year or 11-year, from 2019 to 2030 solar maximum and the current ascension timeline where the sun is showering the earth with solar flares or positive ions. You'll note that the only social media that I use is Telegram, and I do post almost daily of the solar flares that are happening, that are coming from the sun, and that's to prepare us. So I just also wanted to say that I guess, you're all aware now that we're in the most chaotic timeline that we've ever witnessed in this incarnation. And it's just the beginning of what we are going to experience in terms of so-called plagues and biological warfare. There's always been an attack on humanity to lower our consciousness to levels that we can be controlled, manipulated, and we are being subservient to their force perceptions that they have planted into our subconscious mind. And we see this now playing out in the 3D realm. So to lower our consciousness and the degeneration of our biological body, our cells, which are our celestial body, has purposely become depolarized, where it only gives off a direct current of electrical discharge, which is a positive net charge. So this is the inversion of its natural state of discharging alternating currents of electromagnetism. So basic universal electrical principles show us that like charges will repel and opposite charges will attract. So a positive net charge on a biological cell, which is the inversion, cannot attract or absorb a positive light photon from the sun's flares. It's only a negatively charged cell that can attract the positive light photon. So a depolarized cell which carries a net positive charge, will not be able to absorb or attract the positive light radiation from the solar flares, which are positively charged. So instead, the cells will be destroyed by the radiation, which lowers the consciousness or dimensions of reality of the individual. So their mortal bodies will be destroyed by the radiation. We all know that radiation kills our cells, right? Your only chance of survival through any solar flare maximum, which we are experiencing now, or if there was a cataclysm during this timeline, is activating your electromagnetic body. So again, I'll bring this up. It's sad to say, but there's a lot of people who
helping the body, to be healthy, to have, a good complexion, healthy looking, pain-free. This doesn't happen overnight, but it's a process. So if you were a betting man or a betting woman, you'd say, what the hell would I have to lose? And if I'm wrong, well, I'm healthy as a result. That would be my objective. But I know this is true, and this is actual, based on the cycle of the planet and the universe. And it's something that needs to be at least taken serious. Okay, Tracy, back to you there.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for putting that in there, Tim. And here is the positive spin on it. Okay, so we can use, you've heard the term light activation. So we can use the solar maximum, whether there is a cataclysmic event in our lifetime or not. We know it's historically, even it's in mainstream, media and science, that this does occur. You can do the research on that to find that, and we're long past due for that to happen. But even if that's not something we experience right now, that we can use the solar maximum to increase our light energy. Okay, so these are not woo-woo words. This is very scientific. So there are many ancient terms to describe this rejuvenation of the body or light body. And you might have heard of Merkaba. You certainly heard of light body or energy body. And quite simply, this is basic universal electrical principles. So you're going to recharge your cellular structures or hyperpolarize the cell, which then regenerates the DNA. And you're going to have a negative net charge, which is then alternating currents of electromagnetism. So the photon and your ascension of a celestial body begins in your cells. So the ancients refer to the photon, spirit or energy, as ignitons, which means to ignite, to initiate fusion, which is the joining of two or more things to form a single entity. So the light from the sun, the light photon from the sun, is ionizing radiation, and it's a positive ion, which can only fuse or ignite with a negative ion. So your cells must be negatively charged to attract the positive light photon from the sun to ignite the spark or spike of combustion to the cell to create electromagnetism. So if your cells are depolarized, having a positive net charge, they cannot absorb, like I said before, the positive light ions. The cell will become radiated and die off. So depending on what path you have chosen, so not just consciously, I want to go down this path, but you have to physically do the work, right? The sun will either raise or lower your consciousness, and it'll rejuvenate or degenerate your immortality. So if you've chosen the path towards ascension, it requires the hyperpolarization of your cells for this to occur. It requires an action on your part to incorporate the protocols. It is then and only then can the cell and the DNA structure absorb the light photons that we see now coming in during the solar max. So the sun is our consciousness. We've been taught many times, to avoid the sun. And, it's so wrong. And I'm sure a lot of people, all your viewers that are watching this now, know that that's just the inversion of the truth, because the sun will help us on our ascension path. It is our consciousness. It will raise our energy greatly if we can hyperpolarize ourselves first. So the energy emitted from the sun, like I said, is a positive ion. And if you have your cell negatively charged, and we go into a lot of detail on the website where you can incorporate negative ions into the body, so that then you actually become a magnet to the positive ion, and you can draw from the solar maximum to hyperpolarize your cells of electromagnetism.
Tracy,
So
just to let you know, Tracy, we're down to about 4 minutes because it's a 40-minute Zoom. We spent time with you before where we've gone through the protocols and everything.
Yes.
Yes.
And what we'll do is we'll put all the details, the website, the references, your email, Tim's email, in the description, because I think you've given us so much food for thought. I recall the first time I tuned in, I found it absolutely fascinating, but I did need to go off and do my research. So I just want to, on behalf of Michael, because now I'm talking again, on behalf of Michael and myself, I just want to say, Gurmila Mahagat, thank you so much for your time this evening. We know that your work is amazing. We know the website is phenomenal, and your wisdom, as Tim has touched on, is incredible, because you have gone way, way back, and that ancient wisdom, a lot of people are now touching on it and becoming conscious that we have been lied to in the past, and we are looking for solutions. And I know that you offer amazing solutions. So I will put all the details and your contact details and Tim's in the chat. And thank you so much for all that information this evening. And also, I wanted to wish you both a very happy Easter too. Banachtaina Cosca Díobh Galéir, because this is such an informative Zoom, and it's all about rejuvenation and resurrection, which is the theme of Easter all along. So,
Yeah.
Gurmila Mahagat.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kylie, so much.
Okay.
You.
Okay, thank you very much,
Listen,
both of you.
we'll talk
Okay,
to you
God
again
bless.
very
Thank you.
soon anyway. And if we have questions from people, we
Yeah.
will come back to you. Okay.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Namaste.
Brilliant. Okay. Thank you, guys. Happy Easter to everybody. Bye-bye.